Okay, well, everybody, welcome to our weekly webinar series. If you've been following along, we have a very, very awesome schedule of webinars that we've been conducting on a weekly basis. So if you're curious to find out what the topics are going to be, or even really what the purpose of these webinars are, I'm going to encourage you to check out our website, mawc411.com, and then /webinars.jsp. If you click on that, you're going to notice that the first Tuesday of every single month, we're doing webinar call workshops where you can actually participate in a call workshop with myself along with some other fast track coaches and web center leaders. So that's really exciting. We did it for the first time in October and it was an extreme success. People were were just blown away. They had booked appointments right away in the middle of the right after the session was over, which is really cool. The third Tuesday, which is what we're on today, is dedicated to continuing education. So, these are not meant to be an overview or not even necessarily simple strategies. While some weeks we may be going over and recapping simple sales strategies, tonight's a little bit more of an advanced topic. So, again, it's dedicated to picking a topic within the Web Center program and just expanding on that. Really, really cool thing for you to plug into. The second and fourth Tuesday of every month are dedicated to sharing the Web Center program opportunity with unfranchised prospects. So if you've got a potential business partner who would make an excellent Web Center owner, or an existing business partner that wants to know more about the Web Center program, that's where you want to send them. So go ahead and check out the schedule at mawc411.com. On that page, you'll also notice that there are 3 playlists of recorded webinars. Those are streamed in directly from our YouTube page and are separated by topic. So anything to do with the product is in one, anything to do with sales is in another, and anything to do with web centers and business building is in the third. So go ahead and check out the playlist. It's not just a single recording on each of those. If you click on the top left little button, all of the other videos will show up. We do try and record every one of our webinars. In the past couple of sessions, we've actually had several technical difficulties. So, we can't guarantee that recordings are going to happen. So if you want to get the information, the best way to do that is to show up to the live recording. So that's the best that we can do. We're doing everything we can. Now, just regarding questions tonight, at the end, we do a question and answer session. But I ask that the questions that are asked are related to tonight's topic because we want to make sure that the people that are staying on are listening to the question and answer session as it relates to what we've talked about. If you have any questions outside of the topics for tonight or that are a personal question or whatever, what I want you to do is actually email me. My email's right on the screen right now. It's sarah.rose@marketamerica.com. I'm happy to help you guys. If you send me a personal email, I'll make sure that I respond. I just want to make sure that we're responding to those in appropriate places. All right, so let's get into it. Tonight is all about increasing website leads, right? If you've taken a WCT before, if you're on the fast track, or if you've even just downloaded and completed your Web Center Getting Started guide, we talk a lot about working within warm markets. And there's a reason for that. Working with warm markets is easier, it's faster, it's more efficient, and honestly, it's the best way to get somebody started. It's the way that I build my Web Center business 90% of the time today. So even though I've already worked through my warm market list and I've exhausted a lot of those names already, it's literally where the majority of my business is still coming from. However, what I want to talk about tonight are some more non-traditional ways to generate leads, right? So we're going to talk about where you start from. We're going to talk about restaurants, working within familiar industries, the holiday push that's about to happen, what we call a 2-contact approach, which is exactly how you're going to leverage the top 3 things that we just talked about. We're going to talk about where can you actually search for people who are already searching for you, how to stay organized, and really just how to apply all of the topics that we've talked about. There's a lot of opportunities that are out there. um, now, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, now more than ever, people have websites. And if you're working in your immediate neighborhood or your town or even just your region, and you're coming across restaurants or different businesses that don't have a website presence, it's just not acceptable anymore, right? You guys, I mean, think about it. About 7 years ago when we started our web center business, that was a legitimate objection that we used to get was, I don't think we need a website. Now, if you don't have a website, it's just as ridiculous as if you don't have a phone number, right? It's just something, it's the industry norm. It's expected by consumers, whether you are a service or whether you are an e commerce store. So, how do we get to meet new business owners and get ourselves in the door with business owners that are outside of our warm market so that we can build some rapport and actually, move and gain trust to gain a website appointment? That's what we're going to be covering tonight. So before we really get into that, I want to be very clear about the difference between what most people consider cold calling and what I'm going to be talking about, right? Because what I'm talking about is going to involve a lot of business prospects, website prospects of people that you don't know. So technically, they're in a cold market, right? When we talk about looking for, people in familiar industries or restaurants that maybe you don't know the owner, or if we're talking about, taking advantage of seeing a sign on your neighbor's lawn, that's not somebody that you have a warm in with, right? You don't know the person doesn't know you, you weren't given a referral, there's not a name that you could drop so that you can get in the door. So how do we handle that? And again, it's extremely different. Cold calling is an incredibly antiquated sales technique. So when I hear that people are cold calling, it just reminds me of like the people that like listen to cassette tapes. It's just so outdated. It's so ineffective, and it just doesn't work like it used to work. There's a lot of reasons and theories why it doesn't work as well as it used to. But number one, let's just talk with just the basic common sense stuff, right? When you're cold calling, that means you're picking up the telephone book, or you're just gaining a list of leads and you're going to call through all of them, and you're going to have some random script that you say to try to get people to commit to you. And what you have to understand is that that's a little bit rude, right? You're interrupting people in the middle of their day to solicit them when they should be worried about conducting their own business, right? Think about the last time you were at home and you were cold called by either like your insurance company that tried to get you to buy some sort of roadside assistance thing, or somebody that was trying to get you to buy a timeshare or to take a survey or whatever it was. It's never a convenient time to be solicited. And I hope that everybody can understand that. So when you think about the actual process, if you think about what it feels like to be cold called yourselves, then think about how you think your prospects feel when you're cold calling them, right? Solicitation and cold calling, interrupting people in the middle of their day is not really a good feeling. People don't respond well to that. And just understanding psychologically what's happening in the other person's head when you do that, it can help you to understand why it's become so ineffective. When people used to cold call often, it was done because that was really just the best way to get more numbers, right? If you think about it, like there wasn't social media, there weren't other really great reliable forms of communication, right? People weren't emailing often, they weren't private messaging on Facebook one-on-one. There weren't other ways to be engaged with prospects in a way that you could actually work with some serious numbers. And that was the actual goal. The actual goal wasn't to cold call. The goal behind that was, how can I work with more numbers faster? And in 2013, there are way more effective and even faster ways to do that. So we really need to work on that. With cold calling, you also rush the relationship, or you try to rush a relationship. And what I want everybody to understand, this is incredibly crucial to you understanding why cold calling does not work with what we are doing, right? When we are not selling lipstick over the phone, right? We're not selling brochures to a possible vacation where people, whatever. We are selling an appointment to go over an online marketing strategy for somebody's business. And any business owner with half a brain is not going to turn the marketing and really the bread and butter of their business over to somebody that they don't know and commit to an appointment or commit to talking to anybody even further, right? They're going to want to do that with people that they trust, people that they have rapport with, people that come recommended, people that are referred, people that they've done business with in the past, right? Those kinds of decisions are not made with the light of heart. They put a lot of weight in those decisions, and rightfully so. Most small to medium sized business owners have spent the great deal of their life building up what they have right now as a business, and they're not going to just hand it over to some stranger on the phone. So when you hear about people that cold call and they're like, I called 50 people and I got 2 people that said maybe call back and 1 person that said that they might meet with me, not only is that not really an enjoyable way to do this, it's just completely indicative of how people respond to that kind of marketing. So what I wanted to do was just talk a little bit about that on tonight's call, because I can't tell you how many times I get people that say, but I just want a script, but I just want to call random people. And it's important because I've done it. I know people that are professional at doing it. One of the women that I've worked with, her name is Sarah as well. Not only has she done it, she's done it successfully to the point where she was the regional manager for restaurant.com, and her entire sales day was based off of cold calling. And even somebody that was as good as she was at cold calling said, God, it's just so inefficient. I wish that we could come out with something better. And I said, you can. It's called relationship building. It's called networking. And while yes, there are maybe 2 or 3 more steps in between, what you do when you take the time to build rapport is you build um, a relationship that is going to be A, worthy of a sale, and B, that's going to be bigger than that one sale, right? So that you're not just as good as your last sale. You're respecting the business, you're respecting the owner's time, you're respecting the enormity of the type of decision that you're asking the business owner to make, right? You are building a strong relationship that, again, not only is it going to last and lead to sales, but when you provide a good experience, when you are responsive, when you take the time to show that you care and you're providing a solution to a problem rather than cold calling and treating people just like a number, that's when you gain referrals. People don't give referrals unless they have a good experience. And that's true across the board, not just in web centers, right? Think about the last time that you referred a restaurant. You did it because you either A, enjoyed eating there, or B, heard a good story and heard a testimonial about somebody else that ate there. Again, it's the same thing here. And there's nothing more fun than building this business with people that you enjoy talking to and people that refer people to you. It's just the right way to do it. So, again, tonight's call, we're going to cover different ways to identify new prospects. And these people will be part of a cold market. They're going to be people that you don't know. It's going to be all about expanding your names list. But I want you to understand that the goal and intention with working with these prospects is still 100% to build a strong relationship, to build rapport, to gain trust, and to eventually have them transition into one of the names list columns of your original names list that you have. And you'll find that, yeah, it might take a 2 or 3 call approach to do it that way, but it's an excellent way to meet new business owners. And it's an excellent way to do it the right way, where you're actually going to lead to some potential business and some referrals and some long lasting stuff. So that's that in a nutshell. Let's go over where you begin. Everybody starts here, right? This is the names list that we all have. It's in our Web Center Getting Started guide. This is available at mawc411.com, and it's also available at unfranchisedtraining.com, right? So ask yourself, who do you know that owns a business, that works for a business, that you do business with? For example, you are a patron of a certain business. People that are well connected. And then there's this nifty little column on the right that says, who do you want to get to know? And a lot of, almost 100% of what we're going to be dealing with tonight are really people that you want to get to know. You don't have a warm in with these people yet. You don't know somebody that knows them. They're just they're just people in your town or businesses in your area that you want to get to know, so that eventually they will fall into one of these, 4 columns, and you're going to feel ready to ask a question, and schedule an appointment. Just to be clear, building rapport is different on a person-to-person basis. When you're dealing with some people that relationship clicks right away, and you might go from meeting someone today to scheduling an appointment on Thursday. Other people, it might take some more time. But I think that if you handle it carefully and wisely, and I'm going to give you some really good suggestions, I think, for how to transition this in an appropriate pace, you're going to see results fairly quickly. All right, so this is your names list where you begin, and on the left hand column, there's a ton of industries to help jog your memory. Just so you guys know, we can work with all small to medium sized businesses. With the exception of people that are selling things illegal, or the rules that we have. But these are the most common ones that we do business with. So I want you to look at this list and kind of let that jog your memory. Now, restaurants. Oh my gosh, it sounds so silly, but everybody goes out to eat. I can't think of a single person I have ever met that has not gone out to enjoy a dinner or a lunch or a breakfast at a restaurant, right? This is a very familiar industry for people. And the reason it's familiar is because everybody has gone to a restaurant, has worked at a restaurant, or knows somebody that has worked at a restaurant, right? And everybody knows people who go out to eat at restaurants. This is not an unfamiliar territory. Would you agree that when you're thinking about restaurants and the restaurant business, you are able to have a very comfortable conversation about this compared to something that may be a little bit more exotic, like HVAC, like heating and air conditioning? That's a little bit different. And I know for a fact that if I was talking to somebody about that, or about some other industry that I'm not familiar with, I'm going to feel a little bit out of my element, right? So I want everybody to take some time and really dig into restaurants. What are your favorite restaurants that you actually eat at? Have you actually taken the time to Google them and find out if they even have a website? Now what are a bunch of the other restaurants in your town? Can you Google restaurants in whatever town that you live and find out which restaurants exist? Do they have a website? Or are they only doing one of those like listing sites where maybe, for example, I ordered pizza a few weeks ago, and for whatever reason, I couldn't find the phone number that I usually call them. So I Googled them, and I got there to their little thing. I click on the link, and they had one of those. Oh my gosh, I can't remember the name of the site. It wasn't restaurants.com. It was some other thing. Maybe it was Yelp. And so they had the ability to upload their menu, but the only thing on their site was literally the front page of their menu. So it was their logo, the fact that they deliver, and their phone number. And I kept wanting to click on it to see the rest of the menu, and I couldn't find the menu. I'm like, geez, this is crazy. Like, how am I supposed to tell the kids, what their options are? Because the kids had some other friends over, and they were going to order the usual. So it's just interesting that I realized just a few weeks ago that I never took the time to find out if Tolly's had a website. And so, sure enough, when I called up the restaurant, I ordered the food. I said, "Hey guys, by the way, we order from you all the time, and I was just trying to share your menu, and I wasn't able to find a website. I found this this ad online, but do you guys have an actual website?" And they said, "No, we were thinking about it. We went with this other thing. At least we have a listing online now." I said, "Yeah, no, a listing's great. You definitely want to have a listing, because otherwise I wouldn't have found your phone number at all. And I probably would have had to go with someone else. But I'm telling you, it really would have been nice if we could, read your menu online." And he said, "Yeah, it's something we've been thinking about." So I said, "Have you thought about anything specifically? Like, have you thought about going with anywhere?" And they said, "No, actually, that's as far as we've gotten. Is we need to figure this out, and there's just too many options or whatever." And that's when I said, "I don't know if you knew this or not, but blah 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 blah." I'm a patron of this restaurant. They know my address because they deliver to my house like once a week, and they were really friendly and didn't rush me off the phone, and they were happy to answer my questions and happy to schedule an appointment with me because I'm a patron of them, and I had that little bit of a warm in. That's really, really easy to do. That's a lot easier to do than picking up the phone and calling down restaurants and just trying to have that level of conversation with a restaurant or owner or worker that you don't know. So when you work with this second column, this second bullet point, what are some of the restaurants that you'd like to try and try out? When you're working with that, understand that this conversation is going to go completely differently than the conversation that I just shared with you that I had with my favorite, pizza parlor that I called a few weeks ago. It's actually like, yeah, it's just a few weeks ago. And again, guys, so as you're thinking about ways to expand your list and you're going, okay, I'm going to try out some new restaurants. I mean, that's not so terrible, right? To go out to eat. I also want you to think beyond yourself. Do your friends or do your family talk about restaurants that they loved or they hated, right? You know exactly what I'm talking about. When people have tried a new restaurant, write it down, Google them, find out. When your family's talking about a new restaurant that they tried or one that they hated, it doesn't matter, just write it down, figure it out. Do you see any mention of restaurants on social media? I see them all the time, and I know I'm not the only one. So I want everybody to be very hyper aware of the restaurants that they have eaten at and that they love. And don't let what happened to me happen to you, where you go, wow, I never took the time to even find out if my favorite restaurant has a website. Write those people down. And then I want you to also write a list of new restaurants that you're going to get to know. And I would limit this to the town that you live in because if it gets any bigger than that, then now you're dealing with things where you can't even try them out, or they're going to see right through you when you call them up and say, "Hey, I was going to try out your restaurant, but you live 2 hours away." It's kind of weird. So again, I'm just trying to give you strategies that could work fast. And so if I were you, and I am going to do these things, I would absolutely really rethink my restaurant names list. What are the ones I like? What are the ones that I want to get to know? Do they have a website? Is it any good? Do they do any other advertising? If I wanted to share the menu with somebody, how would I be able to do that? And the way that you know that is by asking the question and or finding out if they have their menu online. If they do have a website, is it any good? Are they able to sell online? Can they sell gift cards? Can they do online ordering? All of those things are valid questions. A lot of restaurant owners think that they can't, do online ordering because that would be very pricey. And you know what? Traditionally, it would be very pricey, but we don't have a traditional solution. We have all the flexibility of an advanced solution, but without the difficulty of use. We still have that beautiful ease of use, which I love. Okay, so that's the restaurants. Next, this is a really great transition. We're going to talk about industries that you have familiarity with. Right? The reason we started with restaurants is because everybody knows restaurants. Everybody knows and shares what they love about restaurants, what they don't like. They share them with their friends and family. The same thing will apply to any industry that you're familiar with, right? And let's just talk about why. Confidence in yourself, the way that you carry a conversation, it makes an enormous difference in how you communicate with your prospect, right? When you're very comfortable talking about a topic or a subject, do you agree that you talk differently than when you're talking about a topic or a subject that you're uncomfortable with or that you don't know a lot about? And that's kind of like why we're talking about you should work with familiar industries. So, where do you gain confidence when you're talking about the web center opportunity or the website opportunity? Well, the confidence comes from a couple of places. It comes from knowing that our solution can help a small to medium sized business owner. In our WCTs, we talk heavily in the beginning about our product and service and the benefits and the features of our product and service. And the point of that is not to teach technology, not to teach the ins and outs of how the system functions, but rather to teach how we can help a small to medium sized business owner. Because if we understand that we can help, that affects our confidence, which affects our ability to communicate with a candidate. I hope that makes sense. Another place to gain confidence is knowing that our team is professional and that they're going to take care of your client, right? You're not turning your prospect over to a group of, whatever that are going to do a horrible job. We hold our staff to a very high standard. And we just had to have conversations about a couple of situations that may have happened, and it's like, nope, there's no room for that kind of thing. Like, we work to make sure we're always doing the best, to provide ongoing training. So whenever you're dealing with product specialists, you can know that the product specialists are going to be trained on an ongoing basis. that they're always up to date. And if they're not performing well after whatever, then we won't have them anymore. This is an extremely professional service, and probably, in my opinion, the best part of the service that we sell is our customer care. And so, knowing that we can help and that our team will take care of your client is going to give you confidence. Um, I just want to share a quick story. I mean, some people may have heard this story already, and I apologize if you have, but 2 years ago, my husband and I were nominated for the Economic Pillar of Community Award. And this award was awarded to a small business or a business or an organization that had an economic positive impact in the community. And so, this was really a huge honor. And there were two other people that were nominated that were incredible candidates that were at this event. One of them was the president of a local bank and was nominated for helping small businesses to really start, get the cash flow that they needed to get started and just providing a great service. The other one was the CEO of what we call Big Y Foods. Big Y Foods is like a chain food store, but they have a really unique business structure where they sell local produced, like local produce only inside of their chain. So if they can't get a certain vegetable locally, they won't sell it. And they do a really good job at working with local farmers to make sure that they have everything there. But anyway, let me just put it like this. They're all over New England, and I think even the East Coast at this point. So, being nominated was an honor enough, and being in the company of those level of people was honor enough. But being awarded this award over all the other options was like a complete surprise. But what it came down to was this: we live in Springfield, and Springfield is considered the worst economy in the country. So, when people say, I can't sell websites because people don't have money, don't even talk to me about that. We live on the outskirt of one of the worst economy in the country. And so we were awarded this because we worked with so many small businesses in this town and helped them to grow their business in like a horrible economy. And again, trying to thrive in literally the worst economy in the country. So it was such an honor. But again, that award was not for us. Yes, we were the ones out there, scheduling the appointments and working with local business owners, but it's a true testament to our product, to our service, and to our team of professionals that designed the websites and that handle the customer care from maintaining the websites and using the tools that come with our service to market their business, right? So when somebody tells me, do you really think you can help? I know I can help. I know, like, with every bone in my body, that if somebody gets us a website with us and uses it properly and uses customer care, that we can help them. And so I don't question that, and I'm very confident in my communication, right? So that's where confidence comes from, you guys. It comes from knowing. And we put testimonials up online. We share design center samples up online. We share these things with you. Just today, we had a web center owner post on our timeline saying that they were so over like happy with an experience that their customer had with customer care today, right? It's just amazing. So it comes from being honest, it comes from caring, it comes from being comfortable in your own skin to talk. And when I say coming from an honest place, I mean really identifying what your answer to what is. When you're going to talk to a business owner, and if you're talking in a situation where you're comfortable and you can help, it's eventually going to be time to schedule the appointment. And if you're doing simple sales, which, as a reminder, means that you do not specialize, but you're just simply using a strong referral. You would say something like, this isn't an area I specialize in, but the company that I work with, they have an entire division that works with businesses like yours to help market them effectively online. If you'd like, I could get an appointment with one of our guys for you. And, what would be better, mornings or afternoons? That is the most honest place that most web center owners could come from, because there's nothing in that statement that feels like a falsity. There's nothing in that, or a farce. There's nothing in that statement that feels dishonest or uncomfortable, right? You don't. A lot of people don't specialize. You have to grow into specializing if you ever want to specialize. So coming from an honest place is very important. And then lastly, confidence comes from being comfortable talking to the business owner. And that comfort can be a direct result of you being able to just hold an intelligent conversation or just even hold your own in a conversation about their business. So, where do you have work experience? Did you work as a roofer growing up or in the restaurant business, or did you work, it doesn't matter. Were you a camp counselor, or did you work, as a paralegal or at a school or whatever? I want you to think about your actual experience, or think about different industries that you just have familiarity with and you feel comfortable talking. And then I want you to write what those industries are. And then I want you to write down businesses that exist within those industries. So, for example, if you are a dental hygienist and you feel comfortable talking about, how those places are run or whatever, write that down, dental industry. And maybe to avoid a conflict of interest, you could talk more within orthodontics or other specialties like, root canals or whatever, extractions. There's all kinds of, different specialties, and that would probably be the best way to handle that kind of a situation, just given, the whole conflict of interest thing. And again, you're going to write down these new prospects that you've just thought of, and you're going to find out, do they have a website? Is it any good? Do they advertise? How could you share them with a friend or, a family member or someone? So what I mean by that is, if you're talking about a landscaping company because maybe you just grew up, mowing lawns or landscaping or whatever, if you wanted to share that landscaper services with your neighbor, how would you be able to do that? Do they have a website? Do they have a phone number? Do they have, some better way to reach them? How do they handle that? Do they have a lot of contractors, FYI, they have these like answering services that answer the phone for them and take messages and pass them along. And just FYI, another little note about that is usually 9 times out of 10, part of the answering services job is to weed out cold callers, just so you know. Signage. Everywhere you go, there are advertisements, yeah? On vans or trucks or just, vehicle ads when you're passing and you're at a red light and you see, a van pull up and they have like their whatever business detailed onto their car. What would you do with that? By the way, just so you guys know, like literally, I scheduled an appointment at a red light. This was years ago. We pulled up to a red light, and this guy pulled up, and I actually knew someone that used to work for them, and I'm like, "Hey, did you guys just get new vans?" And they're like, "Yeah, we did." I'm like, "That's really weird. Why didn't you put your website on it?" And they're like, "We don't have one." I'm like, "Seriously? Why not?" And they're like, "Oh, well, we just, we never got around to doing it." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, we need to talk. I'm going to call you tomorrow. We'll schedule a time." And he was like, "Okay, cool." So I called him the next day and I scheduled a time and they bought a website. But it's so funny because I couldn't sell him a website at the red light. There's just not enough time to do that. But I could roll down my window and be like, "Cool van, where's your website?" You know what I mean? I could get that conversation started. Another place, contractors also, almost all of them put signs up on lawns when they're working on lawns. And so even if it's not in your neighborhood, when you're out and about driving around, you're going to find these like little signs that are like put into the lawn of wherever they're working. Also, party rental places do that. So if someone's having a party, or they rented a bounce house or a tent or tables and chairs or whatever, they'll do that a lot too, where they'll put the little sign out in the front and advertise that they're the ones that provided the whatever. Billboards, sporting events. When I go to my kids' baseball games in the summer, all around the diamond are different huge ads of different local businesses, newspapers, menus, placemats at restaurants, especially diners. When you go to a diner, you're going to notice that on the placemat, there's usually a bunch of ads because the diner's just looking for ways to sell and make more money. So they sell advertising space on their placemat. Another little tip on the back of the receipt of your grocery store. Not all grocery stores do this, but mine does, where when they print out your receipt at the end of your order, if you flip it over to the back, you're gonna find like a few business owners that were whatever thought it was a good idea to buy advertising on the back of your receipt. Bulletin boards at local businesses, especially places like coffee shops or whatever. More community friendly kinds of places. They'll have business or bulletin boards up, and people will put their business card there or flyers or, little coupons or whatever. That's a great place to get website leads. I just dropped off my dresses. We just got back from Europe a few days ago, and I just dropped off all my dresses at the dry cleaners. And I was like, whoa, I can't believe I never noticed the bulletin board there. There was like a million things, opportunities just sitting on that board, and an opportunity. So what I did was I literally whipped out my iPhone. I took a picture. I took 4 pictures. I zoomed in on like 4 quadrants of the bulletin board so I could actually just have copies without taking the stuff off the bulletin board. I mean, there's signage, there's opportunities everywhere you go. I mean, we just live in an advertising, we're always being advertised to. So just be aware of that. And then how can you actually turn that into a website possibility? Well, here's how you do that. When you're thinking about this, would you agree that like in a given hour, if you get in your car and you drive from your house to even to work, you're going to come across like half of the things that you see here. So and that's true, right? You will pass trucks, you will pass contractor signs, you're going to pass a billboard, and then some of these other things you may not see, but you will find 3 or 4 of these just in a single ride back and forth. So what are you going to do? Just remember all of those things? Of course not. So what we recommend that you do is really one of 2 things. You can either keep a little notebook in your car and write down the leads as you see them. Obviously, if you're the driver, that's not really a convenient or safe way to get website leads. So I don't recommend that you write and drive at the same time. But another option that some people use is they use a recording app on their smartphone to record phone numbers and leads. So I actually stole this from Ryan when he used to be in outside sales, and he sold advertising as well. This was a big part of how he got his leads, and we've been doing it for literally like 8-9 years. And just from the start, even before shop.com and Market America, he was still using this technique, and it works. And the reason it works is this: when you're driving, you can't remember a phone number. And just process what I just said. When you're driving and you see a business ad on a bulletin or on a car, you can't remember the phone number. So if you can't remember the phone number, and as somebody that wants to do business with them is probably trying pretty hard to remember the phone number, do you think that their potential customers are remembering their phone number? Right? So again, just process that. It might hit you later on tonight, but that's fine. But what I want you to do is just use the recording app and just literally hit record, say, XYZ Landscaping Company, 413, 555-5555, and then end the recording. You don't have to talk about it or whatever. You could just say literally the name of the business and the phone number. This way you can go home and you can actually do some research and figure it out. With signage, with restaurants, with familiar industries, with all of these cold contacts, I'm going to recommend that you do a 2-contact approach in order to build rapport, right? We're going to talk about exactly what that means in just a minute, but just understand that, again, we're not cold calling these leads. We're going to be doing what we call a 2 to 4 contact approach. Most of the time, it only takes 2. That's why I'm going to call it that. And that you're always going to be selling appointments, not websites. Again, nobody in their right mind is going to buy a website from you over the phone. So make sure you're selling the right thing, which is the appointment. All right. Also, keeping in mind, just to expand your hot leads, right? If you're looking for ways to make website sales sooner, then be aware of the industry specific timing. What time of the year is it now? And who could really benefit from having a better website presence right away? So there are some really good ideas right there, but contractors in the fall and the spring, that's their big time. So they either have lots of money to spend or they're really thinking about advertising. Retailers will make a decision, really, in my opinion, over the next 4 weeks about whether or not they're going to start working on their website. Do you want to know why? It's because they're hitting the biggest section of or the biggest spending portion of their year in about 6 to 8 weeks. So they're not going to be making that decision in late December that they should get a website. It's just not good timing. So retailers right before the holiday push is a big time to be thinking about making those kinds of decisions. What about accountants? right? Tax season is the busiest time of their year. So the best time to reach out to accountants is before then or after then, but not during then, right? During tax season, when you're having your taxes done, it's a great opportunity for you to plant a seed and to get a conversation started. But understand this, it is not a good time to sell a website appointment because they're really, really busy. Golf courses, and then, they're finishing up now. And then after that, they're going to be in their down season and they're going to be getting ready for spring. So they're most likely going to make their decisions anywhere between November and February. Indoor activities, bowling, roller skating, ice skating, things that people generally tend to flock toward during the winter times. They usually make those decisions before the winter time. If they make them during the winter time, that's cool. But just again, be aware of just, common sense stuff, guys. If you're really looking to work with home builders in the Northeast, then summertime is not a great time. They're just too busy to deal with new projects like that. But if you wait until after that busy time, that's when they have the most cash flow and when they also make their advertising decisions. So industry specific timing can be a really good way to not only expand your list by just thinking about what industries specifically the timing is right for now. You're going to expand your list by thinking about those, but you're also dealing with people that are in the right timing, which is great. Holiday push. Speaking of holiday pushes, in about 6 weeks, we're entering the biggest shopping season of the year, right? So what better time is there to get selling online for a retail shop between now and the next 4 weeks? If they could nail down an excellent online shopping solution, not only is that going to put them out there so that they can participate in the holiday online shopping rush, which by the way exceeded the regular shopping time. I mean, this I don't have this official statistics in front of me, so I don't want to, I just don't want to say the wrong thing. But I do know that Monday outperformed Black Friday. So again, is there a better time to start thinking about that than now, than this week, than next week? Of course not. This is the absolute best time. And because of that, because retail owners will understand the importance of getting their website launched in time, they will be very responsive to our design team. So if they bought a website this week or next week or even the week after that, and they wanted to have it ready in time, if they were responsive and provided the information that we needed in, a timely manner, we could literally turn a website around in as little as 2 weeks. So this is an excellent opportunity for you to work with people where the timing is just so perfect for them. It's a great way for you to meet new store owners. And again, guys, when you're thinking about the holiday push, I want you to not just think in terms of retail shops. I want you to also think about gift card sales, including other e-commerce prospects such as golf courses, bowling alleys, salons, restaurants, massage places, nail salons. Um, there's so many service providers that sell gift cards that make excellent holiday gifts. And so these are really great people that the timing could be perfect for so that they can take advantage of the online market in time for the holiday season. Again, 6 weeks until we're entering the biggest shopping season of the year. I wrote that on purpose twice and I bolded it this time. So what I want you to do is I want you to follow up with your old prospects. The timing could not have been right back then for a retail shop or a service provider that would be interested in selling gift cards or scheduling appointments online or whatever. But with the holiday push around the corner, timing could be great now. And again, timing is everything. So following up with old prospects is a great thing to do over the next couple of weeks. Also, use that holiday push as leverage with your new prospects, not just with your follow-ups. So when you're meeting with any kind of service provider or any kind of retailer, you want to use the holiday push to push the sale through sooner, right? If you say to them like, listen, and you can do whatever you want because you're the owner of your business. You can say something like, look, we're really working to get as many people taking advantage of this before the holiday season. So we're going to be taking $200 off any package if you can decide by next week. After that, the sale will be over. It's still an excellent deal at the full price, but I just wanted to let you know that we're running a little special. It doesn't matter. You want to leverage the holiday push as much as you can, though, both with your your new, and your existing prospects. So, again, write a list and determine, do they have a website? Is it any good? Do they advertise? How could you share their menu or their products or their services with someone? Do they sell online? Retail shops, service providers, right? Again, you're not going to limit yourself to just the local stores that want to sell online. Include other service providers as well. And that would be a great way to expand your list. So now it's time to engage. I love this. So we've really worked hard on determining a new prospect pool, right? We've got lots of new leads, and a lot of these people are kind of cold market leads. They're not people that we necessarily know, that we've been given a referral for or anything like that. So what we want to do is we want to engage them the proper way, because it all boils back down to, do we want to cold call and be inefficient and be antiquated and be a cassette tape? Or do we want to build rapport, build a relationship, be more efficient, be more effective, be more like an MP3 player, right? It's literally, that's the decision that you need to make. And so the answer, in case you were wondering, is that you wanna be in 2013 with the rest of the sales force, and you want to start building rapport. So I want to talk to you a little bit about a two-contact approach. All right. So the first step to this is to make an introduction, right? You do have to introduce yourself. You do have to get the conversation started. So you can pick up the phone, contact the business owner, however you feel is appropriate, and you're going to state why you are calling. All right. So sometimes it really helps. Actually, a lot of the time, it really helps if you're calling because you want to recommend their service or their product to somebody else. All right. So just keep that in mind. It's going to get the conversation flowing really nicely. So here's an example of how a first conversation would go for me. And this is literally something that actually just happened for me. So I said, "Hello, my name is Sarah Rose, and I just noticed that your sign was on my neighbor's lawn. I think you may have been installing new gutters, but I was wondering if you did gutter cleaning as well." And then the guy said, "Yep, we definitely do. We certainly do." I said, "Great. My sister was looking for more information on this. Do you guys have a website that I could share with her?" Right? This is a very, very simple conversation to have. I said who I was. I introduced myself. I noticed your sign. I said who I was calling. I shared a little bit that I saw what they were doing, and I was wondering if they did gutter cleaning. Yeah. And then I said, "Great." And instead of just going, "Do I have a website?" I said, I wanted to share you guys with her. How can I do that? Does that make sense? Do you have a website? So from there, it's a matter of assessing the situation, right? Every situation is going to be completely different. And that's a big part of why scripts don't work, because you don't know how the person on the other line is going to respond. So let's say that they say, "Yeah, we have a website. It's blah, 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 blah." Then from there, I'm not going to start asking them questions about their website and if they're happy with it, because that would not make social sense. What I would say instead is, "Great, I will share it with her. Thank you so much." And then I would hang up the phone. Does that make sense? And then I would go home and I would do some candidate research. And I'll share with you specifically what that means in a second. But I want to be very clear about this. I introduce myself. I say where I found out about them. I ask a question. They answer it. "Great. My sister was looking for more information on this. Do you guys have a website I could share with her?" "Yeah, we do have a website that it's blah, 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 blah." "Great. I will share that with her. Thank you so much. Have a nice day." Hang up the phone. Now, when you're working with a warm market, it's appropriate to keep asking more questions here. But remember, we don't have that rapport yet. We don't have any familiarity with each other yet. And so it's important to respect that and to just say, "Thank you. I will check out the site. I'm going to share it with my sister," and just leave it at that. I'm going to go home and do some research. Now, if he were to turn around and say, "We don't have a website," at that point, it would be appropriate to say, "Well, why not? Have you guys considered getting one? Interesting. Are you guys working on one?" Those kinds of questions are okay. And again, you're not going to keep it going and going and going unless the timing seems right. And again, you're assessing the situation and you're responding appropriately. Again, the goal is to go home and do some more research. This is contact number one. Try not to push everything out on contact number one, because otherwise, even if you do get an appointment, which is pretty rare, even if you do get one, the person hangs up the phone feeling like, God, what just happened? Right? Don't rush the relationship. Take the time, build the relationship properly. And I'm telling you, you'll take those leads from the cold market and you'll turn them into warm leads. That has to be your number one priority. That has to be your goal. Now, when I say I'm going to go home and do some candidate research, what does that mean? Right? These are the steps that you're going to take before you contact them the second time. Again, the goal is to build rapport. And so what you want to do is you want to Google them and find out a little bit of information so that you can arm yourself with excellent questions, some really good follow-up conversation starters for the second contact. You're not preparing yourself with a great speech. And that's where people get held up. They go home and they Google the person and they find out the website is horrible. So they pick up the phone and they say, "Ah, this is Sarah Rose. I noticed your website," and then they just go on a rant about all the things that they noticed about the website and all the things that they want the prospect to do, and all the reasons why the prospect needs an appointment with them. And that puts the person on the defensive right away. And that's not a conversation anymore. And that's why it generally doesn't lead to an appointment, right? You want to be listening. And if you have some good questions to ask, then you have an opportunity to listen. If you're not prepared with good questions to ask, then the conversation is likely to be cut short. And your opportunity to identify a need is drastically reduced, right? It's a way for you to be polite. You're not going to take up too much of their time because you're going to ask some great questions, you're going to listen, and you're going to sell an appointment. So here's a reminder of what the candidate research includes. With all of your brand new possibilities, either before the first contact or, I recommend doing it before the first contact, or after the first contact, or before and after the first contact. You want to just find out some basic information. Do they have a website? Is it any good? Does the content look up to date? Who did their website? Can you find them on Google? Is it mobile friendly? Are they using social media? Each candidate should not take longer than oh my gosh, a minute of your time. Right? The goal here is not to fill up your schedule with busy work, but rather, again, to arm yourself with some really great questions. And I want you to understand that, yes, there will be people that have fancy ways to determine exactly when the last time they updated their website was, but that, in my opinion, is cool, but it's not something that people need to know how to do. Every single person on tonight's webinar knows what a good website is. You know what a bad website is, and you don't have to be a web developer to know the difference. I hope you understand that, because we use websites every day. We know what we want to see. We know what we're comfortable seeing, and so we know what a business needs in order to have a pretty decent website. The basics of it. Do we know the ins and outs and the intricacies of what the best way to market a specific product is online and how to position the material? No. We probably don't know all of those things, but we are smart enough to know if a website looks up to date, if it looks well done, or if it isn't. You can find this information on Google, Ask Bing, Yellow Pages, newspapers, TV commercials, vehicles, social media, etc. This information is available everywhere. And again, with all of your new possibilities, you want to take about a minute to a minute and a half each and just find out some of this information. All right, so you made your first contact, you got them talking, you politely hung up the phone, you did a little bit more research, and now it's time to reconnect. All right, so based on whatever your previous conversation was with that prospect and the candidate research that you have, you're going to call them back and you're going to have a second conversation. Now, if they were the candidate that did have a website, you would just say something like, "Hey, it's Sarah Rose again. I was just calling back because I checked out your site and I shared your information with my sister, but I noticed that your site, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera." Whatever you found out during the candidate research is what you would say here. And now that you have a little bit of familiarity, you can now ask some more questions. You could just say, like, "I noticed that your site was still showing your spring specials. Do you guys update your website? How do you guys update your website?" Does that make sense? Whatever you found out on the candidate research, you want to use that as an opening statement. But again, you're not going to list everything off, and you're not going to end with your statement. You're going to end in a question, right? So, for example, in that situation, if I say, I noticed that your site was still advertising the spring special and it's fall right now, how do you guys update your website? That's a great question. And that's an opportunity for them to tell you why their website hasn't been updated like it should have been. I hope that makes sense. And you're going to ask appropriate questions and sell the appointment. Now, if they were the kind of candidate that did not have a website and you said, that's fine, you asked a couple of questions and you went home and you did a little bit more research, you would just say, pick up the phone again to make your second contact and say, hey, I shared your information. I just wanted to call back because, whatever the reason, and then your answer to what is it comes next. So if you're using the referral approach, you just say, hey, George, it's just Sarah again. I shared your info with my sister. And listen, she also asked if you have a website. So I just wanted to call back. And, it's not an area I specialize in, but, the company that I work with, they have an entire division that specializes in helping businesses like yours. And clearly you guys are awesome. I saw your sign on a couple of different lawns. So people and, my neighbors using you, other people are using you. And I really think it'd be awesome if people could find out about you. If you'd like, I can get an appointment with one of our product specialists and see if, it's free for them to meet with you. They might be able to help you out. And if not, that's fine too. I just wanted to offer an appointment. What would typically work best for you in that scenario, a morning or an afternoon, right? And so that's a really normal thing to do. Again, that comes back to comfort, honesty, coming from a place that feels true. Does that make sense? And on that second contact, it's totally appropriate because it just sounds like, I was just thinking about you guys and I really wanted to call you back. I really wanted to offer this appointment. I probably should have offered it to you on the first time. But again, the power here is, could you have had that conversation on the first call? Yes. And in some situations, someone will be openly familiar with you right away, and it's totally appropriate. But in most situations, just giving a little bit of space and the power of making a second contact is going to warm up that prospect and make them feel more comfortable talking to you. And so that when you do make the referral, you do offer the appointment, that they're more open to actually taking advantage of that. Whatever you do, sell a solution, which is the appointment. There will never be enough time for you to sell a website over the phone in 5 minutes, right? Obviously, you can do that in an appointment, but just understand when you're picking up the phone and they have all these questions for you, don't answer their questions, sell the appointment. All right? If they say, "Well, what about this?" That's a great question. We can talk about that on our appointment. We don't have a lot of time right now, but I did want to make sure that we have enough time to go over over that blah 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 blah. Right? Sell the appointment. That's why I love when people are like, "But I got this one objection." Okay, fine. Jen, whatever you don't have to know the ins and outs and how to overcome or overrule every objection, because the easiest way to overcome any objection is to simply redirect and say, that's a really great question. I want to make sure we have enough time to cover that. So let me do this. I'll write that down. I'm going to let my product specialist know so that they make sure to address that specific concern during the appointment. Hope that makes sense. I hope that you take that golden nugget away tonight. So again, with the appointment, what are the options that you have? You can schedule an actual appointment with one of our product specialists where they will conduct an appointment, talk to your client about our technology, demonstrate the technology, and answer their questions. If they're not quite ready for that, you can conduct what we call a 15-minute consultation, which is a great opportunity for you to get to learn more about their business. Or you can find out what a better time to reach is or to follow up. 15-minute consultation. The goal is to learn what the prospect is looking for, to demonstrate interest, to provide the product specialist with valuable hot buttons during the appointment, to let your client know that the appointment will be valuable because it's going to address their specific concerns. And what I think is really cool about this 15-minute consult is that while you're conducting this consultation, you're not actually presenting information, you're just intaking information. And what happens is the business owner gets so excited about their business and the potential growth for their business that sells the appointment for you. It's an excellent way to transition into a full appointment. So take a quick look at what this is. I'm going to just give you I'm not going to go into this in detail, but just understand the purpose behind each section. The first section is just all of the information that you actually need to schedule a physical appointment. Now, the second section is just getting them talking about their business, right? what's the primary focus, the secondary focus, where do they conduct their business, if they do any advertising, etc. Just get some talking about their business. The product specialist will know what to do with all of this information. You don't have to know what to do with it. What's really cool about this question here, do you do any advertising? If they do, and they tell you what kinds, the product specialist will know how to translate that advertising into an advertising budget. Again, you don't have to know that. They will know what to do with that. And then finally, there's an online marketing strategy section where we ask them questions about their current online marketing strategy. And just so you know, every single question that you see here is asked because we have a specific solution that's included in our online marketing strategy. All right, so we know that if they say, oh, we don't have this, we don't have that, we want this, but we don't have that, that we have a solution for that. This is, again, when you're done doing this, it shouldn't take longer than 15 minutes because, again, you're not presenting anything. You're just asking the questions and writing down the responses so that you can share this information with the product specialist. But the business owner gets super excited about their business. All right, one last place for you to look for some leads. And I put this at the end because, you won't necessarily need a two-contact approach here. Yes, you're going to be building rapport. Yes, you're going to be building a strong relationship, but naturally, it will be quicker because you're not looking to identify potential prospects. They already are a prospect, right? You're not identifying if there's a need, you're identifying what the need is and how we can get them right on the appointment. So instead of just looking for where possibilities exist, which I recommend that everybody does because that's a very aggressive and awesome way to build your web center business, you can also search for people who are looking for you, right? So if you go to Craigslist or if you go to newspapers or Angie's List or different message boards, you will find that people are looking for web developers or SEO people or social media people, etc. And right now, we don't sell any of those solutions separately. Everything is all inclusive. We'll look into that in the future, but just understand this. These are all people that have put it out there that they need help. And you can help them by simply responding to their ad or to their cry for help and offering a solution, right? What about social media? Look for complaints against other companies and respond. If you go to Twitter and you search the term GoDaddy, yes, the GoDaddy's official Twitter handle will show up, but so will all of the people that are tweeting about GoDaddy. So, one of the things that I do almost on a, I don't know, like a every other day basis is I do that. I Google search for GoDaddy, I Google search for Wix and other companies that, people think are our competition, but they don't even come close. And almost every single tweet literally is like, I can't stand Wix, blah, 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 blah. I can't stand GoDaddy. Their service is horrible. And it's all these complaints against these companies. So instead of me just selling to them, I respond to their tweet and I say, I totally know what you mean. I hear that all the time. Have you considered any other options? And I just leave it as an open-ended conversation. And it's so funny. Like I just actually had some guy say, I already made a decision, but I want to keep you in mind for future projects. What other kinds of things do you do? And, you start conversations with people that you don't know, but that have a need. It's a really, really awesome way to gain some lists or to gain some leads. Now, when you're dealing within all markets, especially with cold markets, it's incredibly important to keep track of your prospects and your progress. So many of these prospects you don't know, and so you want to write down all of the details that you can so that you can remember them when you make that second call or a third call or fourth call or whatever it's going to take, right? So for example, you can have a chart like this, or you can just use a notebook. It doesn't matter. But you would write down the business, the owner's name, and any other people that matter. Like, so if, the secretary's name is Lisa and you're going to be talking to Lisa next time you pick up the phone, write Lisa's name down. Because when you make up that second call, you pick up the phone and you say, hey, Lisa, it's Sarah Rose. I was actually just calling for Joe. Is Joe available? Lisa now feels important. And Lisa is not going to make the decision on the website sale, but Lisa gets to make the decision on whether or not she transfers you to Joe. So writing Lisa's name is just as important as writing Joe's name and any other decision makers that are there. Right? Next is you're going to write a little bit about their website. Their current website is outdated. It was a yellow page site or whatever. BTTR stands for better time to reach. So you can, if you talk to them and they let you know like a time that they are more available than others, right? I wrote 7 p.m. on Thursdays, and then any other notes pertaining to any time you contact them. So I contacted RZ Gutters on 9:15. They were open to new suggestions, but they want me to call back on Thursday evening. No big deal. Now when I pick up the phone to recontact these people, I have all this information in front of me. And I can actually feel like I have some more information than if I had just literally picked. Do you understand the difference, you guys? I mean, guys, you have to see the value in this. If we did just cold called AZR Gutters, all we would have is this. This is all we would have. But because we're going with a two contact approach and we're going to take the time to build some relationship and some value there, now during the second call, we're going to have this entire like plethora of information that's only going to build value and make it more familiar and more comfortable, so that we can actually get to a point where we feel strong enough and comfortable enough talking about the possibility of an appointment. So I hope this has been helpful for you guys. I'm going to try and get the recording up. There's a lot of, these are some more advanced strategies. Maybe when you're just getting started, you want to hold off on dealing with these kinds of markets and just stick with the website or getting started guide is what I recommend. But if you've exhausted those, I want you to pick one, two, or even you can try them all out, but just even pick two of these things, these suggestions, and try to implement them and see where it takes you. A lot of really great strategies that are proven strategies that work. And whatever you do, just remember that it's still going to boil down to building rapport, gaining trust, and gaining loyalty so that you can build a long-lasting relationship. All right, guys, thank you so much.